Hey guys, before we get started with today's video, I am announcing that starting next week, I will be uploading my videos over the course of the weekend. So it could be either Saturday or Sunday. It depends on how much time has gone into my video prior to Saturday. If I still need some extra time and I still need the entirety of Saturday or even a good chunk of Sunday, I'll be uploading my video Sunday. But if my video is ready by Saturday, I'll be uploading it on Saturday. So now, essentially, just expect every Saturday or Sunday, depending on how much of my video is done, to for me to be uploading my weekly videos now on either Saturday or Sunday. So I just want to let you guys know that before we get started with today's video. Technically speaking, this is the first week I am trying this new schedule out in order to make sure I still upload my weekly video because I'm getting frustrated with not uploading on time, and I want to make it up to you guys by actually still technically being on time and giving you guys some sort of content to leave you guys with. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Now on to the video. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. For this week, we are going to be talking about something that I've wanted to kind of go on a little rant about for quite some time. There's been at least 7 other subjects besides today's video that I've wanted to rant about for a while, but we'll start off the list with this topic, and that topic is youth sports head coaches. I'm being specific with what type of youth sports coach because, as a kid, I grew up playing a lot of sports. You may have known on this channel, that may or may not have known really, on this channel, that I have previously talked about being a hockey player. I have not mentioned nearly as much that I've also been a baseball player and a football player. I didn't play basketball, but I remember at one point we used to have, when I was really little, I used to actually go outside and shoot some hoops with some of the neighborhood kids. Obviously, times have changed dramatically, and things have just a lot of things have changed as you get older. But youth sports head coaches, in my opinion, they're not good. Right now, the current state of youth sports head coaches are just, they're atrocious. Where do I begin? Well, it's really hard to pinpoint my grievances, but if I really had to try, I guess I can try and give you guys a couple of bullet points as I begin my rant today against these people. Let's begin. Let's first start off with a bullet point that's more sympathetic towards these coaches. And the first thing is that they are underpaid. For the most part, these are people who are underpaid. There's not enough money, whether it's at a local nonprofit youth sports organization, or whether it's the local high school. Sometimes, if not most of the time, realistically speaking, these high school teachers, the high school head coaches, are underpaid. And sometimes there are those that pay their teachers very well, and that's fine. But for the most part, youth sports, I include high school sports into that category. Realistically speaking, most of these sports organizations, especially nonprofit youth sports organizations, are well, they're not underpaid. They're underfunded, is what I can say. They're underfunded, and that can take a dramatic effect if you don't have enough money. It just heavily affects your infrastructure of your organization. It affects the payroll of the employees you have, and of course that includes the coaches. But I would argue that the next few bullet points I have up here greatly undermine the excuse that, it's not a surprise that my coach, was a bad coach because they were underpaid. And let's first start off with something that isn't even the second bullet point. It's actually the fourth. That is that they are unqualified. There was a recent study. That was done that shows a shocking number of high school coaches of all different kinds of sports: basketball, baseball, football. All these high school coaches, they're not even qualified to be coaches. And first of all, that's your first problem. All right, that's your first of many problems, is that they're unqualified. They don't even meet the requirements to be a serious candidate for head coach. There are numerous amounts of reasons that a high school may still give them the job anyway, and most of that is usually financial stuff. But this is kind of like the beginning of your problems. It's like the very beginning of the problem. The first step of having a really bad coach is just having one that's not qualified at all to be a coach, period. Your second step to having a bad coach is one that is strict with their athletes and has anger issues. Actually, I would call this the second and third problem. So, strictness and anger issues. I played middle school football, not high school football. I played middle school football, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And let me tell you, the coach I had was the same coach I had in 6th grade by the time I stopped playing football after 8th grade. And he had a problem. I genuinely believe that he had a bit of a messed up life. And it wasn't just me that hated this coach. He was very strict. He somehow believed he was like the Herb Brooks of high school or middle school football. The problem with just what I would believe, I would believe that these types of people who do coaching have an egotistical, narcissistic problem. They have a problem with being an egotistical narcissist, in my view. Because they always like to believe that they're training the next generation of these young warriors, these young men getting ready to die on the battlefield. When in reality, it's just a bunch of little kids that are overhyped and overexcited about chasing down another kid who basically is holding pigskin, running down incredibly itchy grass. Most of the time it's turf, very bad turf that hasn't been updated in 5 years, hasn't even been repainted in at least 3. And yet they still think of them, and yet the coach still thinks that they're the next Herb Brooks. If you just punish the kid enough, suddenly you have them in line and they're very disciplined. When in reality, you're giving that kid anxiety. You're giving the kid mental problems. But this is something I didn't just experience firsthand in football. This is also something I experienced firsthand in hockey. Hockey is a brutal sport. It is about as brutal as American football, except if you don't keep your head up, and there's an old saying, if you don't keep your head up in hockey, you're going to get clocked. At least that's the saying that I grew up with, because it mostly came from members of my family. Everybody, my mom, my dad, my brother, and me, we all played hockey. And that was the saying we usually used around each other. If you don't keep your head up, you're going to get clocked. And obviously, when I was very young, I didn't understand what that meant. But by the time I ended up just hanging up my skates, and in like 2015 or so, I realized what that meant. Only after I retired, what that really meant. If you keep your head down, you won't be able to see the person charging right after you. A lot of these coaches seem to really believe, especially in both football and hockey, at least in my view, if there are any experiences you guys have with your coaches, let me know in the comments down below. But what seems to be the main theme with these types of coaches is that they essentially have a philosophy of keeping the kids in line, in the same way that the British really toughened up the U.S. military during. Sorry, it wasn't the British. It was like a French general, I believe, who buffed up the American, or manned up the American military under George Washington when we were fighting for our country's independence against the British. Essentially, translate that into the sports world. They believe that a lot of these coaches look at these kids and they see apparently mini warriors who are ready to die for their team and throw punches and basically spit in the face of their opponents. When in reality, these are kids basically either A, forced to basically participate in a sport by their parents because, cardio is good, or B, they are kids who just want to have fun. There are very few kids that I talked to on my hockey team or on my football team that actually dreamed of becoming professional football or hockey players. But by the way the coaches always talk to these kids, you'd think you're about to enter the trenches of World War II or some shit, because they really love to just go on this, they really love to go on what I call power trips. They love to blow the whistle and they go, all right, maggots, line up. You think you're doing military drills. Maybe you've unexpectedly signed into the army. What the fuck? It's just, you, it's like, all right, maggots, line up. It's time for you to crawl on your feet. Like a bunch of babies. Then you're gonna do manly push-ups by lifting 100-pound weights. Some of this stuff that I'm, kind of over-exaggerating about, but this was the overall attitude, especially of my middle school football coach. He was something else. He had anger issues. He really went off on referees when they missed a call. He once got so irate about a call during a game, he actually went right up into the stands where all the parents are watching, and he asked them point blank, if that call sounded great, and a lot of them jokingly responded no. But, I mean, he was insane, man. He was insane. But hockey coaches, my brother, after I retired, my brother didn't retire from the game until 2021. So actually just last year, he witnessed a wave of these types of people, of these egotistical, narcissistic people. But that's not related necessarily to youth sports, because my brother started university hockey, I think, in like 2018, and then he retired in 2021. So really, from 2014, when I stopped playing, 2015 through 2017, when I stopped playing the game, and my brother was still technically under 18, he played across the country with several different prospect teams. Unfortunately, he never really became a top prospect for anybody's watch list. So unfortunately, he never became a professional hockey player. But unlike me and the majority of the kids that I talked to on both my hockey team and also my middle school football team, my brother did try to pursue becoming a professional athlete. It didn't work out for him, but if it's not a part of God's plan, then it'll be a part. Then He does have a plan for you, but it's just not that. What I can't stand is that from 2015 through 2017, every time my brother would come home from the end of the season, he was always very disgruntled. At times, he had mental problems. Kids on the ice would beat him up, and his coaches would actually scar him. His coach, one of his coaches that he played for, scarred him for allegedly not fighting back. When in reality, the kid that was beating the crap out of him on the ice he was fighting back against the kid, but the coach apparently thought he wasn't tough enough. And I can tell you firsthand, my brother is the toughest guy I know, and this is just another example of coaches basically just trying to do what Herb Brooks did with the 1980 U.S. men's national team, and essentially just, yelling and screaming at them about how you're not worth my time, you're not worth X, Y, or Z, when in reality, they are totally worth his time. Not to mention, they believe in the same way that Brooks believe if you push their buttons enough, suddenly you get the best out of them. In reality, the kids just hate you. And here's the thing, I understand that Herb Brooks is, a legendary coach, not just in ice hockey, but in American sports, period. But there is a reason that there is only one Herb Brooks. I want that to be repeated and also just really reaffirmed here. There's only one Herb Brooks. There will never be another Herb Brooks. And these youth coaches really have to stop acting like they're the next Herb Brooks, because kids get hurt physically and mentally, and they lose passion for the game. You hear about this stuff on the professional level too, with football, baseball, basketball, hockey, coaches that practically plug their ears to criticism, believe they're the best thing since sliced bread. And the moment that they actually have to face the reality of what they've done, they, again, put on those earplugs. And even when they get fired from these teams, They just go, I never did anything wrong. Management's just stupid. They don't want to win. They don't want toughness. No, they don't want an egotistical narcissist as their head coach. But the most damning thing about a lot of these youth sports head coaches nowadays is the last bullet point behind me. Let's get to it. Unlike these two bullet points that we just went through, I don't want to focus on this one for too long, and it's not necessarily because I'm I'm really tiptoeing the line of getting monetized on YouTube, because I don't meet the requirements to even be monetized here on YouTube to begin with. But I just kind of wanted to, I just want you guys to see this sort of thing with your own eyes. Scandals. However, there was one type of scandal above all else that always triumphs when we talk about head coaches, whether it's for youth sports overall or even just high school, middle school, or even, sickeningly enough, elementary school head coaches. I don't want to say it because I just don't want to get banned or even a strike for simply mentioning the words, but in a nutshell, I'll basically put it in the generalization: a sex scandal. Usually sex scandals are what follow these people. Other times it's not even sex scandals. Other times it can be things like, drunk driving. That's another common thing with these types of youth head coaches. Other times it could be literally battery and assault when these sort of head coaches get into fights with people. Sometimes even fights with the kids' parents, which is just unbelievable. But unfortunately, the way that either these organizations or these schools, depending on which scenario you want to pick, a lot of the times they don't even respond with doing the right thing, which is, of course, to immediately ban the person and just let them off your payroll and just tell them to get out. Instead, most of the time is we're investigating what happened, and as it turns out, even when they get pressured into maybe dropping the coach from their roster, or even just from their organization and or / school board, usually the coach just is quietly sat there on the sidelines and quietly gets paid time off, instead of immediately cutting him and excluding him from any future salaries or even any potential future involvement in your organization and or school. But instead, the former happens. It's just, in the description below are a handful of stories, of which I am pointing to, that just shows a lot of these school districts as well as organizations really don't care about how much trouble their head coach gets into. I don't know if this is really because of financial reasons, like everybody's on a shoestring budget nowadays. But in my opinion, if you're going to claim you want to help children really get into the game, I don't want people who believe they're the next Herb Brooks to become their head coach. I don't want people who try to pull out their whips against kids, literal kids, people who aren't even 18 or about to turn 18, people who will be going through their most difficult time of their lives, mentally speaking, at least in your youth. When you really go through high school, mentally speaking, it's a really different experience compared to any other time in your life. And yet these people, when they go out for their activities, whether it's for basketball, baseball, hockey, football, or even soccer, there are tons of examples of head coaches just not being able to control themselves in any of these sports, and sometimes they blamely square they square the blame on one individual. And usually that kid kind of feels not just embarrassed, they also feel very demoralized from that. But we're not going to get coaches that are very understanding nowadays, because unfortunately the entire youth sports system is just crawling with these types of people. A lot of these people are in very influential positions outside of just being your team's head coach. But for me, if youth sports head coaches, or even just coaches overall, really wanted more kids to get involved in sports, then I recommend they change their attitude and they change the person in charge of the system. That's really why I wanted to make this video, and why I was actually really eager to make this video, because to me, I genuinely believe youth sports would be very fun for everyone, for all these kids. If they actually had leaders. Not people who want to be tough guys, not people who want to, become the next John Madden of their age. Just people who actually can offer them a calming hand at a time of rough seas. But I don't think we're going to get that for a bit. And if you do have a coach or have experienced a coach who is genuinely nice, consider yourself lucky, because for me, when it came to my middle school football career, I didn't get a very good coach. And when it came to my brother, he got a very bad mix of coaches throughout his hockey playing career. So he was just, I'm genuinely convinced that these coaches kind of just pick up the check, they act like dicks, and then they just walk away the moment they realize maybe they've pushed it too far. And then they go on and grift the next team, and the next team after that, and the next team after that. But that's why I wanted to make this video today, because despite all these problems I have with modern day youth sports coaches, I genuinely feel like if we had some meaningful actions, meaningful reforms from within the system of youth sports themselves, then we would probably have much better coaching, much better staffing, and we would have more kids more eager than ever before to join the sports they are passionate about. But alas, perhaps it could be wishful thinking. Maybe it's not. For me personally, I'm not someone who's going to make a call to action. This is just a channel that rants about stuff on my mind. So this is where I'm going to have to leave the video here, because I just want this whole video to be done, and I want this video to really just sit with you guys, and I want you guys to share your thoughts on this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys either next Saturday or Sunday. Of course, this is now a brand new schedule that I will have to do. It just depends on how far into my video I am in, if I will be uploading on either Saturday or Sunday. All you should know is that I will be uploading a video once every weekend. Have a good weekend, everybody, and I will see you guys next weekend.